Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
This the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Program.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 502 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined as ever by former heavyweight world title challenger, the main man himself, Mr. Fast Eddie Chambers. Eddie, how you doing this week?
I'm doing great, my man. How about you?
Always good when speaking with you, Eddie. We're going to dive straight in then to the review part of the show. This one went down last Friday, May the 30th, at the Domo Alcalde in Guadalajara, Mexico. It was live on DAZN. We had Murodjon Akhmadaliev move to 14-1. A TKO for him in the 8th round against Luis Castillo, now 31-7. It was quite a brutal performance from Akhmadaliev. Castillo hung in there, man. He showed his balls. He really did. He hung in there. It took a bit of a beating, but eventually Akhmadaliev got him out of there. I suppose it did take a bit longer than we expected, but a good win nonetheless. We also had the rematch between Manuel Gallegos, 21-3 now with a draw. He was actually not upset. He lost the rematch against Khalil Coe. He sprung the upset in the first fight. This one here was as expected. Khalil Coe, despite losing in the first fight, was actually the favourite once again, just not as big, of course, as a favourite as the first one. It was an instant rematch for both men, but credit to Khalil Coe. He went in there and boxed smart, and he's now 10-1-1. This one for the WBC USA light heavyweight title. So this one was a retirement really in the 5th round. He didn't come out for round 6. TKO 5 there for Khalil Coe. But yeah, credit to him. I felt that his gas tank let him down in the first fight. We didn't see if that was going to be an issue because obviously the fight didn't go as long as the first one did. But yeah, he seemed quite relaxed in there, to be honest with you, Khalil Coe. I think he's bounced back with a good performance, and yeah, he's probably saved his career in some ways. Not to say he would have been frozen out, but he come back and performed quite confidently. Went in there, with belief that he'd done some things wrong in camp the first time round, and he went in there and rectified it. So good stuff for him. Also on the Friday, also on DAZN, the two shows clashed, of course. We saw Eric Priest. Sorry, this one was at the Virgin Hotels, Las Vegas in Nevada, USA. We saw Eric Priest move to 16-0. A unanimous decision over 10 rounds against friend of the show, Luis Arias, now 22-5 with a draw. Arias had a point deducted for hitting on the break in the second round. It was a tough fight for Luis Arias, the first couple of rounds, I suppose he came out, boxing quite well early on, but he really had to work hard to keep the fight competitive because Eric Priest looked very good the other night, and towards the end of the fight, Luis Arias was sort of, taking, he's second best in every area by the end few rounds. So good performance there from Eric Priest against a capable fighter in Luis Arias. It's a good scalp, a good learning fight for Eric Priest there. And the main event was a really good fight, actually, between Darius Foljam, 14-0, now 14-1. He loses his O to Beck the Bully, Bektemir Melakuziev, now 16-1. No one really picked the fight to go the distance, but Beck the Bully won on points, a unanimous decision over 12 rounds. Beck the Bully did have a point deducted as well in the 7th round for holding. He really held quite a lot. Darius Foljam was down though in the 12th round. yeah, like I say, really good fight. I think Foljam did a bit of holding as well. The referee didn't seem to be on his case as much. But yeah, really fun fight. Sometimes I felt that Foljam was letting Beck be first a little bit too often. And obviously Beck got into a little bit of a rhythm early on. But credit to Foljam, he had a lot of success in the 5th round when he busted up the nose of Beck the Bully. Beck then sort of, for moments, appeared to be lost at sea. Maybe for a few rounds, it took him a while to get back to his boxing, trying to get back into that rhythm. I feel like Beck the Bully's a confidence fighter. He grows in confidence and fights well. Or if the confidence is taken away, then he's a little bit average, I think. But yeah, it was just a massive shame, broadcasting-wise, that both main events clashed almost to the same second. Like literally, both fights were in. Both main event fights were in the ring being announced at the same time. So that was a real shame. I had to watch one on the phone and one on the TV. I had to stream the one on the TV and watch the one on the phone. Through the DAZN app. So, paying subscribers couldn't watch both fights live because you can't watch 2 screens. So I had to stream one and pay for the other one. So it was that's a bad error there from DAZN. That shouldn't be happening. But yeah, anyway, Melokuziev, was fighting with his guard down. He was jumping in, throwing one punch and jumping back out. I don't really like watching that style, but, it was frustrating for Foljam, But yeah, he did keep having success with a long straight left hand as well that seemed to snap the head back of Foljam a few times, and it wasn't a good look. It was a real eye-catching shot. Kept getting caught with that straight shot, and his head would really, jolt backwards. But yeah, Foljam did seem very easy to hit the other night. I was a little bit disappointed with his gas tank as well late on. It was a high intensity fight, but at one point I really felt that it was Foljam's fight to lose, kind of around the midway point, maybe round sort of 6 to 8. I felt that he was starting to be in full control really, but yeah, I think he was the betting favourite as well at one point. Then it all went the other way. Credit to Beck the Bully for coming back in those late rounds and picking it up when he needed to. But yeah, I just didn't think that Foljam fought very smart in the late rounds. Both guys showed great chins. Foljam's balance, I don't think, is great. I think we saw that the other night. Kept getting caught a lot while he didn't kind of have his legs under him because he'd be off balance. Kept getting caught with shots he didn't expect to come at him. He got dropped as well, obviously, like I say, in that 12th round, and he was off balance there as well. I don't think he was massively hurt, but it was a big 10-8 round that obviously affected the scores in the end. A little bit of inexperience shown there from Foljam, but like I say, credit to Beck the Bully. Close fight in the end, and his style definitely frustrated Foljam. Moving then to the Saturday, we had this one go down at the Riviera International Conference Centre in Devon, United Kingdom. Friend of the show, Brad Pauls, moved to 20-2 with a draw, a points win for him over 8 rounds against Omir Rodriguez, who's now 15-27 with a draw. Rodriguez was down in the 8th and final round, but like I say, managed to hear the final bell. Moving now then to the Michelob Ultra Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada, USA. This one was live on Amazon Prime. We had the undefeated 7-0 with 7 KOs Cuban prospect Yoenli Hernandez moved to 8-0. A unanimous decision for him over 10 rounds against Kyrone Davis, the tough, wily veteran, you'd say, even though he's only had 23 fights. He's now 19-4-1. Davis down in the second round, but managed to hear the final bell in the 10th. Yoenli Hernandez hears the final bell for the first time. I didn't actually see that one there, but it doesn't surprise me that Kyrone Davis went the distance. Also on the card, the return to the ring for Jamal Charlo, coming off, I think, what was it, a year and a half out of the ring, something like that, if I'm not mistaken. He's now 34-0, a TKO for him in the 6th round against Thomas Lamanna, now 39-6 with a draw. Lamanna down in the 3rd, the 4th and the 5th rounds. Very, very, very tough. Again, showed huge balls. You could see that, shots were starting to bother him, especially in those rounds he was dropped in. Really, from the first knockdown, it was kind of like target practice for Charlo. And yeah, not to say that Thomas Lamanna wasn't trying. He certainly didn't give up. He tried his best, but he just wasn't on that level. It was good to see Charlo back. I really hope that we're still going to see big fights and big wins for him down the line. Because he's always been a really good fighter, and obviously I don't think his career's kind of gone to plan. I mean, his younger brother, younger brother, what am I talking about? They're both twins, but his when I say younger, I meant to say the smaller brother, the one who's at the lower weights, got the Canelo fight, not him. So he didn't get the Canelo fight, even though he was closer to the weight of Canelo, which was always a bit weird to me. But he didn't get that Canelo payday, so I don't really think things have gone to plan for him. I don't think he's had massive, massive paydays despite being with Al Heyman. I could be wrong. I'm not sure what kind of money he was earning back in the the PBC on Fox type of days. But yeah, all the best to him, and hopefully we see him back active, and hopefully he's not, he's not lost the best years of his career from his inactivity. And then, the main event, Caleb Plant, a real big upset. He's now 23-3, a split decision loss for him over 12 rounds. One judge gave it to him. I think that was extremely interesting. In the other corner, the underdog, the massive underdog, Jose Resendiz with the win, now 16-2. Caleb Plant over here in the UK, you had to bet $25 to win just $1 back. That is how sure the bookies were that he would have enough to beat Resendiz, despite his recent form, picking up losses to Benavidez and Canelo. This was a massive drop down in opposition. But it's clear to see, Eddie, that Caleb Plant is completely done. He was completely fading after 3 rounds. Resendiz hadn't even had a 12-round fight before, and he completely dominated Plant. For me, and I'm the biggest Caleb Plant fan, by the way, his story is super sad. Anyone, especially who's got kids, will be able to feel for Caleb Plant. His situation with his daughter that passed away is just so gut wrenching. So I've always been a massive fan of his. He's been on the show. He's a friend of the show, and it hurts me to say it, but that's got to be it for Plant. I think he needs to retire, because I do not want to see him carry on and get a big fight and get knocked unconscious, because that is the way I can see it going. I think he's going to end up getting put to sleep, and I just don't want to see that. He's been through enough rubbish in his life, man. I give Resendiz credit, but I think he's got a clear ceiling. He's not a great fighter, but Plant was just diabolical the other night, and he did well, obviously, in his career. Caleb Plant, some would say he's a overachiever, winning a world title. At one point, people thought, people didn't really think he was that good. But then he shocked a lot of people, picked up some good wins, got some good momentum and stuff like that, and obviously got the big fights against Canelo and mainly Canelo, but the Benavidez fight as well. Both fights paid him nicely. He's got a beautiful little family. He's got his wife Jordan. And they look like the perfect pair. But I think that's it. I think that's got to be it. It's sad to see, because Caleb Plant, Eddie, was once a very slick boxer, and now, especially the other night, he couldn't stop getting hit flush in the face. That's got to be it for me.
Yeah. It's hard to say about retirement yet, but maybe not really. You know what I mean? He didn't look the best. He did fade. Looking at the fight, it wasn't as slick. He was getting hit too much. You know what I mean? Normally, like you said, he'd be a lot more elusive out there boxing. Well, even the last fight he had, I just can't remember the guy's name. Trevor
McCumbee.
Trevor McCumbee, yes. And that guy was strong, and he was a lot tougher than people really understand. I've been in with those guys who are strong, and they have those weird styles, and typically not too much of a style, to be honest. It can be really tough to beat those types of guys. But then you come back out and fight a guy like this Resendez, and now he's a good fighter. He turned out to be a pretty good fighter, but I don't know if he was a world beater. You know what I mean? And for Caleb Plant to lose to him in the midst of them trying to put together this here fight with Charlo, and Charlo winning and everything, it just it just doesn't look good. The fight obviously doesn't have any legs anymore. Even though the whole slap thing and all of that kind of put fuel to it, it just doesn't have the legs that it once had with Caleb Plant losing to this guy. And now, him being in question of even being an elite fighter, which guys are going to start to question now, because is it that Resendez is good, or is it that Caleb Plant is done? That kind of thing. And any kind of time you have questions like that, it's not good for a fighter. So me watching the fight and seeing what he did, I mean, there's some flashes of hope, but it just was few and far between, especially with the guy dominating the fight as the fight went on. And Caleb Plant, though he's knocked guys out, like, namely Anthony Durrell, he's not the kind of guy that you would think that would have to resort to that. You know what I mean? To getting somebody out of there, because he's not able to cover the distance well. So it kind of makes you a little pause. It gives you a little pause about really where his career is going. So I understand, the wanting to be careful with him going any further, because, like you said, he has a good family. His situation has already been tragic, him losing his daughter and things like that. And to then continue to fight when there's no reason to do it, especially if you're financially good, looking at his previous performance may make you start to think it's time to look at that. So I'm not one to, jump the gun. So, maybe giving him another opportunity, maybe somebody, excuse me for saying, lesser than what he just faced. Obviously, you would think a lesser fighter would be somebody that he's not going to be fighting on TV. So, that's not to take anything away from Resendez, but, he wasn't expected to be this good or to do this well. So I just think now it's important for Caleb Plant to go back to the drawing board and really look at, the rest of his career and especially in the near future, and make the decision on, what he wants to do. You know what I mean? If he wants to have another fight, if he wants to get back to that top level, he's got to look at himself in the mirror, and also and honestly be honest about what happened, what he did in camp, and just different things like that. And hopefully, if we do get Caleb Plant back, we'll get a healthy, good, solid version of Caleb Plant, because at one time he was really a high level, solid fighter.
Yeah, I just can't see it. But talking of guys that need to retire, someone needs to tell the man in Texas at the Texas Theater in Nashville, Tennessee. We had on Tuesday, so just 2 days ago, the 3rd of June, Oliver McCall, former heavyweight world champion, 61-14. He was having his 76th pro fight. Well, he's picked up his only ever draw, a split draw over 6 rounds to Carlos Reyes, who is 7-17 with 3 draws now. Carlos Reyes hadn't won a fight since 2015. I think Oliver McCall hopefully will walk away now. That, though, brings the review part to a close. It's now time to welcome this week's special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the light heavyweight contender himself. It is, of course, Mr. Brad Ray. Brad, welcome back on the show, my friend.
Thanks for having me back on, mate. Yeah, it's good to be back on.
Always a pleasure, my friend. So, yeah, we last spoke back in February. At the time, you were looking ahead to your fight against Constantino Nanga at the time on that Beterbiev-Bivol undercard. Obviously, people will know the fight falls through. You're left without a fight. Then, all of a sudden, you landed with a fantastic opportunity to box for the European title against Daniel Dos Santos. You arrive in London. You're there fight week. You're there at the venue, just a few hours out. And Dos Santos pulls out in the dressing room just a couple of hours before the first bell. At that point, Brad, mentally, how on earth do you deal with that? I was devastated for you. I saw you, obviously, in London at York Hall, and you were in quite unexpectedly decent spirits. I thought you were just, oh my gosh, I don't know how you dealt with it.
Yeah, you know what, mate? Honestly, it's been some years so far. Yeah, it's been a roller coaster, mate. But like you said, mate, we had a little chat when the fight fell through at York Hall, and I think at that stage, mate, I was still kind of, I don't know, mate. I couldn't believe it had happened again. I really couldn't believe it had happened again, and yeah, you know, if I didn't laugh it off, I think I was gonna cry. So it was just one of them. But look, I'm not the type of person who's gonna sit and feel sorry for myself. You know, in my head, I'm going somewhere. You know what I mean? I'm gonna get to this end destination, and you know, whatever route, whatever journey I take, you know, it is ups and downs, twists and turns, lots of pullouts in my case. But you know, at the end of the day, I feel like I'm gonna get there, and you know, nothing's gonna kind of deter me from that. And look, I was disappointed. I was gutted. In my head, I was gonna step in late notice. I was gonna turn up. I was gonna shock everyone, and I was gonna become European champion. But look, it just wasn't meant to be. It just wasn't meant to be. It is what it is. I had a little moan, felt sorry for myself for a few hours, went and had a few beers, got back in the gym on Monday, and you know what I mean. I was back to it because I felt like something was going to come up. You know, I felt like something was going to come up, and when it did come up, I had to be ready. And look, that's been the case. That's been the case. I think in the long run, although it's been massively disappointing year so far, it's worked in my favour. You know, I've shown, look, I'm not scared of anyone. I'll go and fight this kid we're all talking about in Saudi. I'll step in against the European champion 3 days' notice. You know, I've shown that I'm not all to talk. I'm not just putting this stuff on social media. And you know, it's worked out. I'm fighting for the European title. I've had a full camp, and yeah, look, I didn't become European champion at York Hall that night because it was written for me to go over to Ireland and become European champion. And I think, you know, everything's fell into place now. And look, I've just got tunnel vision on June 28th.
I mean, like I said, it wasn't a totally wasted trip. You did of course get to see me.
Yeah, that was worth it, mate. It was worth it.
But yeah, like you say, man, thankfully the EBU strips Dos Santos, for those that were wondering, and the belt's now vacant, so it's on the line. As you say, you'll be boxing for it against Shakan Pitters, an all-British affair going down in Ireland. June 28th is the date, live on DAZN. Style-wise, Brad, how do you see this fight playing out? Because it's obviously a completely different style to the recent names you've been linked with.
Yeah, you know, I think it's something I've not had to deal with in a long, long time. You know, a fighter who is taller than me and will be trying to use his range, and you know, he'll be in the position that I'm usually in, I guess. But I just see it as another challenge. You know, it's something else I've got to overcome. And you know, we've been working hard in the gym on how we're going to overcome that challenge. And you know, I'm very confident. You know, I've got the ability to be able to do that. He's a good fighter, Shakan. You know, I rate him. He's been there at a good level. He's been there and done it. He's been British champion. He's mandatory for the European title. Like, he's clearly a good fighter, but you know, I just feel like, look, no one's getting in my way at the moment. And yeah, I think everything's written. And look, June 28th is going to be my night.
And obviously, you don't live a million miles away from each other. Is there or was there a relationship with Shakan in the past, or?
No, mate. I've never really come across him because I've not really been at light heavyweight that long, mate. So a lot of these lads who now I'm linked with fighting, when I was down at 160, I used to sit and watch him on the TV. You know what I mean? As a fan, I used to enjoy watching him fight, and you never really, I'd watch the middleweights when I was a middleweight, and I'd think, yeah, I'd have a bit of that. You know what I mean? Oh yeah, he's all right. But then you can sit and appreciate the fighters that are in your way. And I used to do that, but things are different now. They're all like you say, same weight class as me. And no, I've never sparred him. I've never come across him, but I've watched him fight. I've watched him fight quite a few times over the years. And like I said, he's a very good fighter. He's accomplished a lot in his career, but I just feel like he's had his time, and it's my time now.
And Brad, you've had some T-shirts made up for the fight that look absolutely unreal, by the way. Tell us more about the T-shirts. How can people buy? Have they missed the window?
Yeah, so I've put an order in. There will be a few little spares left over, but yeah, look, we've it's a good friend of mine, and Connor Walker's. He's been on these big shows getting his T-shirts done, and I said, our friend who does the T-shirts kept saying, I'll do you a design. And I just felt like a bit of a phony if I'm getting T-shirts printed up and boxing in a 6-rounder on a small horse show. Felt like a bit of a blagger. And I promised him, when I get a big fight, I said I'll get some T-shirts done. And look, doesn't get much bigger than this European title. So, yeah. We've had some Stingray merch, and there's going to be a few packed in suitcases heading over to Galway.
Fantastic, man. Fantastic. Whenever I interview you, Brad, I do like to throw some random fights at you just to get your thoughts on some of them, because obviously, you really know your boxing. So I'm going to start with this one out of the wild card box. Hamza Sheeraz, Edgar Berlanga. Talk to me.
It's a great fight. I'm excited to see Hamza at super middle. I think it'll be a little bit of a breath of fresh air for him. I can see Hamza outboxing him. I can, but Berlanga's a big puncher at super middle, and he's Hamza's not really, he's obviously took a few shots at middle, but he's not the same as, these bigger lads. And Berlanga's a big puncher from a super middle. If Berlanga lands clean, I think we could really see what Hamza's made of, and it'll be fight or flight. But I'm going to back Hamza, definitely. I think Hamza's got the boxing ability to do it.
I certainly hope so. Canelo Crawford.
You know what? I've been Canelo flat out since the rumours started. I think he's just too big. And then recently, I don't know what it is. I think I'm going Crawford. I know it's a bit of a rogue one. Yeah, I think I might. I don't know whether Canelo. Look, the skull fight. It's not a style where he's going to look good, but. Is he just starting to slow down a little bit? He's been in some tough fights over the years. Is it catching up with him a little bit? And I think a fighter like Crawford could expose that. And I love Crawford. I love how game he is. He's not thought about this twice. Like he genuinely just wants to test himself, and he genuinely just wants to get in with the best and prove that he's the best. And you know what? I'm going Crawford, and I might come to regret that decision and eat my words a little bit, but I'm going to back Crawford, I think.
Okay. I've got two more for you. I've got Usyk Dubois 2.
I'm going Usyk again. I think points this time, but I'm going Usyk again. Like that, he's just. I can't see him getting beat. I cannot see anyone beating Usyk. Honestly, I love to watch him, and I think he is up there with, honestly, one of the best, boxers I've ever seen in my lifetime anyway. And I love him in the ring, and I love him even more outside the ring because he's just absolutely class, especially when I was speaking English a little bit more. Like, I just love him. I could watch his interviews all day.
I tell you what, though, I just think I remember. I think if my memory serves me right, last time we spoke, I asked your take on it was going to be Parker Dubois, and the fight fell through, obviously. And I think, if my memory serves me right, you went with Parker.
I did.
But yeah, obviously Dubois does look much more confident now since that first Usyk fight. He's really improved, I think, in his last few.
100%. I think he maybe went into that first fight, a little bit. Oh, maybe he was. I'm going in with Usyk, and I can't remember where the fight was, but
it was in Poland.
Yeah, it was a little bit more home soil for Usyk, and he went in as the opponent, and he's flying high now and a confident fighter. It's dangerous, and he is going into this fight believing that he's going to knock Usyk out. Like, I have no doubt in that at all. Will that play into his favour? Will it play into Usyk's hands? I think Usyk's the type of fighter that could maybe expose that. And as the fight goes on, you might just see the hope and the self-belief, start to fade a little bit. And, that's when Usyk goes through the gears, I think. And, he's exposed many a good fighter like that over the years. And I can just see that happening again.
Yeah, I get that. And finally, another bit of a weird one. I don't know if you're going to have too much to say on this one, really, but Manny Pacquiao coming back against Mario Barrios.
Yeah, mate, you know what? I don't really want to say too much on it because I think it's just... I don't know, mate. Look, I was a massive Pacquiao fan. I loved him. What's the point? I'm a bit. I think Barrios is gonna win. I do think he's gonna win, but I just think, what's he got left to prove? What has Pacquiao got left to prove? He's one of the best ever. What was it? 8 division world champion.
Yeah.
Like unbelievable. I don't know. I don't really understand it. I don't really understand the reasoning, and I don't really understand. There's been fighters probably at that weight class fighting for years for a chance to fight for that title, eliminators, final eliminators, getting into mandatory positions or whatever. Surely these fighters should have that opportunity. But yeah, it's not something. I think the majority of these fighters, when you're done, you are done, and you should knock it on the head. But he must feel like he's got something left to prove. He's got something left in the tank, and look, we've seen it. I don't know how many times before that. When it leaves you, and I don't think we're going to see anywhere near the same Manny Pacquiao that we would have seen 10 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's a strange one because, as you said there about there's been guys, in the queue. Obviously, when Crawford vacated, there were a lot of people that kind of became quote unquote email champions, and it is a fact that the division right now is the weakest it's been in a long time, and I guess he's just singled out Barrios as, and a lot of people do think he's the weakest champion. Obviously, Ennis is considered, kind of next level to the likes of Barrios. So I feel sorry for Barrios that everyone kind of rates him that low. But at the same time, I think it's a brilliant opportunity for him to get a great scalp. As for Pacquiao, obviously he's going to be 47 later this year. He'll obviously be one of the oldest ever world champions. I guess that must be the drive, but I don't think he's going to win either, to be honest with you. So it's a bit of a shame.
Like you say, it would be a good scalp for Barrios, but it's a lose-lose for him. He wins the fight. Everyone says you beat an old man up. You know what I mean? You beat a legend up, an old man who's a shell of himself. He loses the fight, and then you got beat up by an old man. It's a lose-lose for him. And like you say, you've kind of been backed into a corner where he has to take the fight. He's probably getting a career high payday for it anyway. But yeah, like you say, I think there's other fighters there that would have probably. But even I know he's just lost to Eubank, but the Barrios Ben fight is a more exciting one for me. And yeah, look, I can't say I'll be sitting up until silly hours to watch that one, unfortunately.
Just before we let you go, Brad, as always, if you've got any closing words to the listeners, or if I've missed anything, remind me. But yeah, anything before we let you go.
No, mate, just look, I hope everyone is excited as me for June 28th. You know, I've been off the grid. I've been flying under the radar, but I've been working hard over the last few weeks. And look, I'm gonna cement myself, you know, back where I feel like I belong. And I've missed it. You know, I've missed fighting in these 50-50 fights on the big stage, on these big platforms. And look, after June 28th, I'm gonna be here to stay.
We cannot wait, Brad. We cannot wait. Of course, I'm pulling for you as always. The pleasure is mine for this interview. Thanks so much for your time. Best of luck for June 28th out there in Ireland, and we'll speak sometime after, my friend.
Top man, thank you very much. Speak soon.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, usually the news part, but nothing to bring you as of yet. We're going to move then to later this evening. Later this evening at the Bayou Event Center in Houston, Texas, USA. Over here we have friend of the show Miguel Flores, 27-5 with a draw back here for the WBC USA featherweight title over 10 rounds against Kenneth Taylor, who is 15-4 with 2 draws. All the best there to Miguel Flores, a good guy. Moving now then to tomorrow. This one is going to be going down live on Channel 5 in the UK at the Newcastle Arena in Newcastle, United Kingdom. Like I say again, live on Channel 5. It is a Sauerland show. We're going to have on the undercard the undefeated American knockout artist prospect, deemed to be the next Floyd Mayweather, and he's a friend of the show, Jahan Ingram. 6-0 back in a 4-rounder here against Tatenda Mangombe, who is 3-15 with a draw. Up the card we have the return to the ring for Cyrus Pattinson, who is 7-1. He obviously lost to Conor Walker. I think this could be his first fight back. He gets in with Joe Garside, who is 8-1 with 3 draws. That's over 8 rounds there at welterweight. And the main event, Josh Kelly, 16-1-1 in a 10-rounder here against another guy that you'd have to look on Google to find out who it is. A guy called Flavius Ba, who is 24-1. The one loss he was stopped, hasn't really boxed anyone of note whatsoever, to be totally honest with you. This guy here, it's another guy that you're scratching your head wondering what the plan is with Josh Kelly. I just don't get what these types of guys are for. But all the best to him. He's a friend of the show. I like Josh Kelly a hell of a lot. And he's a brilliant fighter. I'm just a little bit frustrated about how slow he's being moved. Moving then to this one. Again, it also goes down tomorrow, but it's going down in the late evening / early hours of Saturday for us in the UK. But Friday in New York, nonetheless, at the Turning Stone Resort and Casino in Verona, we have friend of the show, Franchon Cruz Dazern, 9-2. She is defending her WBC super middleweight world title over 10-2s against Citlali Ortiz, who's 4-1. All the best there to Franchon. She hasn't boxed since December 2023. She was out all of last year, so a year and a half out of the ring since she beat Shadeja Green, which was an upset win for her. Moving now then to Saturday finally. This one goes down at the Bolton Whites Hotel. We have Zelfa Barrett, 31-3, finding himself in an 8-rounder here against Christian Bielma, who is 19-10 with 2 draws. I've definitely seen that name before, Bielma, 100%. I want to have a little look at that. I just don't understand Zelfa Barrett. I mean, I remember last time I really thought he'd beat Jazza Dickens, and he lost to Jazza Dickens. That was back in February. Now he's back in Bolton on this hotel card. He's boxed at the Bolton Whites Hotel quite a few times, if I'm not mistaken. The opponent, though, Christian Bielma, I've seen him in with. I'm not even too sure who I've seen him in with, actually, looking at this now. Oh, Ernesto Mercado. Yeah, he boxed Ernesto Mercado, got stopped in 2 rounds to him back in February of 2024. That's the guy I've seen him in with. Friend of the show, Ernesto Mercado. Once upon a time, he actually fought Luis Alberto Lopez back in 2017. Lopez went on to win a world title, of course, but that's another story for another day. Moving on then from Bolton, we're going to go now to Ipswich at the Portman Road Football Ground, Ipswich Football Stadium. This one's going to be live on DAZN. It's a Frank Warren Queensbury show. We were supposed to get Dillian White on this card, but he's not fighting on it anymore. We do have, though, friend of the show, Sam Gilly, 18-1 back in an 8-rounder. He was supposed to be boxing against Louis Green in a rematch. Louis Green pulled out. In stepped Gideon Onyanani, who is 7-5, and we saw him box only a matter of weeks ago. He was boxing in the UK literally back in May. So literally the 17th of May, he boxed Jimmy Sains on the Fisher Allen 2 undercard. He's back. So what? It's been 2 weeks or 3 weeks. He steps in with Sam Gilly in an 8-rounder. Went the distance with Jimmy Sains, who was 9-0 with 9 KOs. He's the only man to have gone the distance with him. So so he's a tough guy. He's never been stopped in his 5 losses. I'm expecting Sam Gilly to win that one on points. That could potentially be free money there. Also on the card, we have Mike Perez, the Cuban, 30-3 with a draw these days. Back in a 10-rounder against Stephen Ward, 15-3. I would favour Mike Perez here massively. Still hasn't lost the fight since his loss to Maris Bridis back in 2017. Hasn't been super active though. He is coming off though 3, 6, 8 wins in a row, 7 by KO. He gets in with Stephen Ward, 15-3. Stephen Ward's been stopped in 2 of his 3 losses, including a loss last year in July to a guy called Jürgen Oldedaj, who I'd never heard of. He is coming off a win though, quite a big upset in my eyes, back in March over Tommy McCarthy. So, but again, I'm expecting Stephen Ward to probably get stopped here by Mike Perez, who has got to be up there in age now, Mike Perez. He is 39, 39, wow. All right, moving up the card once again, we have Pierce O'Leary, 16-0, back in a 12-rounder here against Liam Dillon, 15-2-1. That one over 12, like I say, for the vacant EBU European and the WBC International Super Lightweight titles. People tell me that Pierce O'Leary is going to win this fight by KO, and they are very sure of it, so we'll have to wait and see. But I tell you what, Liam Dillon always shows up in fantastic shape. He's tough as old boots. Pierce O'Leary, we've all heard the stories of how special this guy is supposed to be. We still have much more to see, I think, from him under the bright lights, so let's wait and see. But hopefully he looks good here. We also have a 12-round main event against, or should I say between, Fabio Wardley, 18-0 with a draw, 17 KOs, and Australia's Justice Hooney, 12-0, 7 KOs, 6'4", 26 years of age. And obviously stepping in for Jarrell Big Baby Miller, who lost out on this one. I've seen little bits of Hooney. I think I saw his fight against Kevin Lorena. I don't think he looked great in that one. But again, Kevin Lorena can be very, very tricky. You've only got to go back and look at his fight against Daniel Dubois. However, I think this is a totally different fight. And I think Fabio Wardley will get to him and probably stop him, I would say, probably around about the mid-round, something like that, I would have thought. But it's a good fight. It's a really good fight. There's a lot on the line for Fabio Wardley. If he wins this, he gets a shot at the winner of Michael Hunter and Kubrat Pulev. So, that's a massive, massive fight for him after this. So, yeah, there's a lot of pressure on him at home in Ipswich. Whether he's an Ipswich fan or not, that's up for debate. But, we'll have to wait and see. I think that's going to be a fun fight, that one there, live on DAZN. Moving now then to the Oakwell Football Ground. This one's live on Sky Sports at the same time. We've got On the undercard, Mark Jeffers, 20-0, back in a 10-rounder. He steps in with Sean Hemphill, who is 18-2. That one's at super middle. We also have Callum Simpson in the main event, 17-0. This one's for the vacant EBU European super middleweight title. He steps in with Ivan Zucco, who is 21-0, and if I'm not mistaken, I think is from Italy. Italy, 29 years of age, 18 KOs. He's a southpaw. Just looking through that record, no real standout names from my point of. Well, he did beat Jermaine Brown back in 2023, but Jermaine Brown is of a certain level. Callum Simpson, for me, is sort of, well, I mean, he also doesn't have a great resume just yet, but I really think he's going to go on to some big things, Callum Simpson. So this is a step towards that. It's a good fight there, really, for Sky Sports for a Saturday night for a European title. No real complaints from me, but I do enjoy watching Callum Simpson fight. Also on this Saturday, this one goes down at the Newtown AC in Newton Township, Pennsylvania, USA. We have over here friend of the show, former world champion Mickey Bay, 25-3 with a draw. He's back in an 8-rounder against Oscar Escandon. That's a fun fight under the radar. 27-10 is Oscar Escandon. Mickey Bay hasn't boxed since May of last year. He's coming off 2 wins in a row, though, since his fight with George Kambosos back in 2019. So he's been very inactive. Just 2 fights since that fight in 2019 with George. That's insane. Moving now then to this one here. It goes down again on the Saturday. There's just too much going on this weekend. This one's going to be live on ESPN. It's going to be live on Sky Sports late in the evening. We have friend of the show Troy Isley, 14-0 in a 10-rounder here against Atundi William, who's 16-1. We've got Tiger Johnson, 15-0, back in a 10-rounder against Janelson Bocachica, who is 17-3-1. We also have Abdullah Mason, 18-0, stepping in with friend of the show, Jeremiah Nakafila, the pub owner and policeman of Namibia, 26-4. All the best there to Nakafila. He's going to have his work cut out for him, but he keeps getting these opportunities in the USA. He loves it. This one goes down, by the way, in Norfolk, Virginia at the Scope Arena. We also have on the card Kelvin Davis, 15-0, the brother of Keyshawn. He boxes Nahir Albright, who's 16-2. That's a former opponent of Keyshawn, by the way. And then the main event is Keyshawn himself, 13-0, defending his WBO lightweight world title over 12 rounds against Edwin De Los Santos, 16-2, who had a very, very, very forgettable fight against Shakur Stevenson, where Shakur Stevenson was to blame, in all honesty, but it was that really negative fight from Shakur that he gets a lot of disrespect for. And we're going to see how this fight plays out with Keyshawn Davis, who I'm sure will look to go in there and make a statement. I love watching Keyshawn fight. Everyone knows that on this podcast that listens. Tremendous fighter. Moving to Sunday at the Gold Coast Convention Centre in Queensland in Australia. This one again on DAZN, if I'm not mistaken. We have friend of the show, Jai Opataya, 27-0, stepping in with Claudio Squayo, who is 17-0. Somebody's O must go. Combined record of 44-0 there. That one's over 12 rounds for Jai's IBF Cruiserweight World title. All the very best to Jai Opataya. He's a massive favourite for a good reason. Brilliant fighter. And then finally, again on the Sunday in Tokyo, Japan, at the Ariake Coliseum, we have the main man himself, Junto Nakatani, 30-0. This one over 12 rounds for the IBF and WBC Bantamweight World titles. He steps in with Ryosuke Nishida, who is 10-0. That's a good fight there, by the way. Nishida's looked really, really good in recent fights. So really fun fights from Japan to Australia to the United Kingdom to the USA. There's a hell of a lot going on the Friday, the Saturday and the Sunday. Don't miss any of it. That, though, brings the preview part to a close. In part 1, we did the review part, then we welcomed our special guest. In part 2, there was no news, but I did the preview part all by myself. The final thing for me to do is to come in with the outro, which I'll do in just a few seconds. Okay, and this wraps up episode 502 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Eddie Chambers has been with me for the duration of the show. A massive shout out to this week's special guest, that man being the light heavyweight contender himself, Mr. Bradley Ray. The biggest thanks of all goes out to you, the listeners. Thanks once again for tuning in. That is about everything now from myself. Enjoy your weekends, people, Friday, Saturday and Sunday, and we'll see you all again same time next week.